So here I have a paper pattern that I've gotten laid out on the 025 aluminum, and I made this on my CAD program and printed it out on my plotter at work, and I just trimmed the edges, not right to the lines, no need to waste all that time trying to get close to the lines because you're just going to cut on the lines anyway. But I do want to use one of the straight edges of the piece of aluminum that came from the factory, but it's difficult sometimes to get that lined up with a big huge pattern like this. So what I do is I cut some V's, some notches out of there, and then you can see where the edge of the line of the pattern is. That way it gives me something to line up on the edge of the metal. So I do that a few times down the length of the pattern. So you can see now I put newspaper around the edges of the metal so that the spray adhesive doesn't get all over my work surface, and then I masked off whatever parts of metal I didn't want to get the adhesive on it now. Now I'm going to use my little tick marks here that I've cut out on the edge and just align the edge of the pattern with the edge of the metal all down the length. All the way down the length of the pattern behind the camera here also. Then once I have that all set, now I'm going to tape down the first half of the pattern. So with everything straight on this edge over here, now I'm going to take half of my pattern and tape it down so it doesn't move. It keeps all the alignment. Just using some painter's tape. Just somewhere about halfway. Make sure you tape it down enough so it doesn't move around and slide around on you. This side's not going to tape down real well because I've got that extra edge on the pattern here, and I'm not really sticking it to the metal. So I'm actually kind of sticking it to the newspaper and just what little metal's exposed on the tick marks there. But it's as long as you're careful, it's enough to hold it in place. Now I'm just going to carefully roll up the untaped part of the pattern so that I can expose the aluminum to spray it with the adhesive. And the most important thing here is just to roll it, so you'll be able to roll it back out after you spray the adhesive. Need a little piece of metal or something to keep it from rolling back out on you. Now I just take some 3M multi-purpose adhesive and spray the aluminum. Now I'm just going to take that paper pattern that was rolled up and very carefully roll it back out. Just pressing down across it as I go. And by rolling it out, you shouldn't get any wrinkles or misalignments on it. Make sure you got it all pressed down nice and neat, especially along the edges, because that's where it wants to peel up. And I'm looking at my tick marks here, and my lines are all still nicely lined up. Now I'm just going to take and untape all the tape here, roll this up, spray that, roll it back out the same way, and then I'm ready to start cutting. So now I just roll up this side. Right up to where I stopped spraying the first time. And same thing, I just take my spray adhesive and go ahead and roll it back out. There you go. And because I lined this this up with the straight edge of the aluminum, I know that the rest of the pattern is straight, because when you got big patterns you run the risk sometimes of getting it a little squiggly and the lines aren't quite straight, and you don't really notice it until you put a straight edge. But this way you've got an automatic straight edge, and it proves the rest of the pattern to be nice and straight. And now I'm ready to start cutting and drilling. And if you look at the pattern, you can see I've got all the holes marked out for drilling. And of course I just follow the edge of the pattern to get all the rest of the cuts. And I think I spent about a half hour laying out the pattern on CAD, and about 10 minutes to print it out on the plotter. And laying out similar pieces by hand used to take me, for something like this I would probably take 2 or 3 hours to get it laid out anyway. So I've just saved myself a ton of time, and I know I'm a lot more accurate with these locations than I would be if I was drawing it by hand. And one last thing to note here is that WD-40, if you soak the paper with it, will dissolve the adhesive and let you pull the paper right off, and then you take a rag with a little WD-40 on it, wipe it all over the aluminum, and it'll become completely clean. You'll have absolutely no adhesive left on the metal.